Welcome, focused learners. Today we are diving into something absolutely massive. We're going to unpack the origin story of humanity, specifically looking at how it's analyzed in Maulana Maududdi's famous Tafhimul Quran commentary on Surah Al-A'raf. Honestly, this source material is fascinating. It gives us this multi-layered look at human nature, morality, and where we're all ultimately headed. And the coolest part, it doesn't treat this like some dusty, ancient history. It actually frames the whole narrative as the blueprint for the psychological struggles you and I face every single day. I am so excited to guide you through this explainer, so let's just jump right in.
Here's the roadmap for our journey today. We'll start with an introduction to Surah Al-A'raf, then cover creation and Satan's arrogance, move into deception and the fall, explore modesty and true piety, look at balance in worldly life, and wrap up with the final accountability.
Okay, Part 1, Introduction to Surah Al-A'raf. Setting the stage here is super important to really grasp the huge themes we're about to tackle.
Right off the bat, the commentary grounds this text in its historical setting, the Meccan era of revelation. Now you might be wondering, why does that matter? Well, the Meccan period was all about foundational, deeply philosophical messages. It's essentially an urgent invitation to divine guidance. It issues these heavy warnings by pointing back to the epic histories of past nations, societies that totally collapsed once they lost their moral compass.
That brings us to Part 2, Creation and Satan's Arrogance. This is where the core tension of the entire human epic actually kicks off. The source breaks down the creation sequence super rapidly, really emphasizing how incredibly sudden the fracture was. Step 1, a direct divine command is given to bow to the newly created human Adam. Step 2, the angels immediately, perfectly submit. Step 3, Satan arrogantly refuses, and Step 4, boom, that direct defiance leads to his swift, absolute expulsion from grace. The big takeaway here is just how quickly the peace of the cosmos is shattered by a single, stubborn act of pride.
And the commentary highlights exactly what fueled that pride, quoting Satan's explicit justification. "You created me from fire and him from clay." The text points out the massive flaw in this logic. Basically, Satan is judging worth purely by material origin. Fire versus clay. He's choosing that over submitting to divine wisdom. This right here introduces prejudice and a false sense of superiority into the universe. It literally sets the stage for every human conflict born out of arrogance.
Which leads us straight into Part 3, Deception and the Fall. Let's look at how this cosmic arrogance targets the innocence of the very first humans. The source gets really specific about Satan's methodology for revenge. He doesn't use physical force against Adam and Eve, no. It's straight-up psychological warfare. He whispers. He uses false promises, tapping into their totally natural human desires for eternity and power. The text emphasizes that the whole point of this whispering was to strip away their innocence, expose their hidden vulnerabilities, and ultimately manipulate them into breaking that one divine command. Now, what's genuinely fascinating about this specific exegesis is how it frames the fall. Yes, it treats it as a real, historical origin point, but it also elevates it into this ongoing, deeply relatable metaphor. The text insists this isn't just a story from the past, it's the exact psychological blueprint of our daily lives. Every single day, we're fighting this exact same battle, an internal struggle against our own ego and an external struggle against deceptive little whispers trying to pull us off our moral center. Moving on to Part 4, Modesty and True Piety. We see a really fascinating conceptual shift here around the ideas of nakedness, vulnerability, and covering up. So, after Adam and Eve's vulnerability is exposed, the text introduces a beautiful divine intervention, the concept of libas, or clothing. The commentary explains that clothing is a specific, unique gift meant to separate humans from the animal kingdom. It has a dual purpose in the physical world. First, it covers our physical shame and preserves our dignity. But second, it's an aesthetic adornment. It actually allows us to express beauty. But the source builds this into a much deeper philosophical point. Physical clothing covers the body and looks nice, sure. But the text introduces a far superior garment, the clothing of piety, or taqwa. Think of it like this. If physical clothes protect your skin from the weather, taqwa is the ultimate, indispensable protection for your soul. It guards your inner self against moral degradation. So, what does this spiritual protection actually look like in everyday life? Let's dive into Part 5, Balance in Worldly Life. The commentary lays out a totally pragmatic, balanced approach to living in the physical world. It explicitly tells us to wear beautiful, decent clothes, especially during worship. We are highly encouraged to eat, drink, and actually enjoy the provisions of the earth. The only real boundary is to avoid being wasteful or excessive. The text actively warns against extreme asceticism. It's basically saying, don't artificially deprive yourself of life's lawful, beautiful gifts and pretend it makes you more spiritual. According to this text, true spirituality is found in balance, not total deprivation.
To really contextualize this push for balance and dignity, the commentary brings up a very specific historical practice. Before this revelation, there was actually a pre-Islamic custom of walking around the Kaaba completely naked. People mistakenly believed that stripping away worldly things brought them closer to the divine. Well, the text intervened and strictly outlawed that. It makes the case that true worship doesn't require degrading the human form at all. Instead, it's about maintaining your human dignity, beautifully covered, in the presence of the divine.
Finally, this grand thematic epic leads us to our last section, Part 6, the final accountability.
The source text wraps up this massive arc by introducing the concept of al-wazn, which translates to the weighing. The commentary is very clear here. All our human actions, our choices, our hidden intentions, they are all building toward a completely objective, inescapable final accounting. We aren't talking about a subjective performance review. This is an absolute weighing of deeds on the cosmic scales of justice.
The narrative builds some incredible tension here by explaining how these scales, the mizan, actually work. The text proposes this almost mind-bending law of spiritual physics. In this final court, only truth actually has mass. Only actions rooted in sincerity and piety will physically tip those scales. On the flip side, falsehood, deception, arrogance, it doesn't matter how grand or powerful they seemed in the worldly life, in the end they are revealed to be completely hollow. Falsehood has literally zero weight on the mizan. It is such a powerful visual of ultimate justice.
As we wrap up our explainer of this profound worldview presented in the Tafhimul Quran, it's clear the human story is essentially a constant tightrope walk. According to the text, the ancient clash between human humility and satanic arrogance is not just a story from the past. It is the absolute reality of your present. Every single day, the choices you make either add weight to your truth or they hollow you out with falsehood. So, I want to leave you with a final thought directly inspired by the source material to reflect on in your own life. In this ongoing epic, which path are you walking? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.